Howdy, this is Chirayu, and this is a presentation on the case report on Tony Stark from Iron Man 2008. Tony Stark, also known as Iron Man, is a wealthy and brilliant CEO of Stark Industries, a major weapons manufacturer. He's known for his intelligence, arrogance, and indulgent lifestyle, often surrounded by luxury, fame, and attention, and even women. The film is set in a post 9/11 world shaped by global conflict, American exceptionalism, and a glorification of military power. It is a society that celebrates technological dominance and individual achievement. And in this environment, Tony's narcissistic traits like confidence, dominance, and flair come out. So the diagnosis is narcissistic personality disorder, or rather known as NPD. This disorder is marked by grandiosity and a constant need for admiration and a lack of empathy. People with NPD tend to see themselves as superior, fantasize about power or success, and often exploit relationships for personal gains. And this is stated in the American Psychiatric Association, or DSMV, on page 761. Tony lives in a society that rewards self-promotion and charisma, and in this context, his behaviors may be celebrated instead of pathologized. If Tony saw a therapist in this setting, he would likely be diagnosed with NPD, though his high status may cause a clinician to initially misread his charm as confidence. Across cultures, however, these traits are seen differently. In collectivist cultures that value humility and group harmony, narcissistic behaviors may be more easily diagnosed and less socially tolerated. In contrast, in individualistic societies like the United States, it can make it harder to recognize NPD because it encourages self-focus rather than cultural focus. In Western cultures, NPD is heavily stigmatized. People with disorders are often portrayed as manipulative, villainous, and this can discourage treatment. Symptoms of NPD. Firstly, Tony clearly shows two core symptoms, which is firstly the grandiose sense of self-importance, and he often refers to himself as genius, playboy, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, and expects admiration from everyone around him, regardless of the situation. Second, he displays a strong need for admiration, thrives on attention, and puts himself in the spotlight. Like when he announces to the world, I am Iron Man at the very end of the movie, rather than keeping his identity secret. But despite all this, he has one symptom that he lacks, and that is the lack of empathy. While he can be self-centered, he does show genuine concern for Pepper Potts, his spouse, and his actions as a superhero, risking his life to protect others, is also a suggestion of some level of empathy that remains intact because that is literally what superheroes do, that he cares about the earth and puts himself on the front lines instead of sacrificing others. So, treatment. The best approach for treating Tony Stark would be long-term psychotherapy, especially transference-focused therapy. This form of therapy especially helps individuals with NPD better help understand their inner emotional world and improve how they relate to others. Since Tony struggles with since Tony struggles with vulnerability and relies heavily on admiration, this type of therapy could help him build deeper self-awareness and reduce conflict in relationships. Ethical concerns can include therapy counter transference, especially if Tony is idealized, then his status may have result into a biased therapy due to outside pressure and not personal motivation. This raises the question about his true consent and willingness to engage in change because he can just influence the therapist instead. Social and cultural barriers also play a role. Tony's fame, wealth, and cultural glorification of his confidence may make him feel like seeking for help is a sign of weakness. For powerful men in Western society, it would make it is often discouraged, and this would make Tony like discouraged to admit that he needs support. Broader perspectives. In the film, Tony Stark's narcissism is portrayed in a mostly positive light because his arrogance is packaged with wit and charm, making it appealing to the audience. While the film captures the external traits of NPD, it doesn't show the inner and emotional instability and the fragile self-esteem that they do have. So, more broadly, films like Iron Man and even any action films or any Marvel films, they blur the line between confidence and narcissism because they don't show the inner struggles. And while media glamorizes these traits, it can be very misunderstanding because people become less empathetic towards the disorder and towards people who actually suffer from it. This increases stigma and reduces the chances of people with NPD being recognized and supported, and rather they're treated really badly. So these are my references all in APA style, and thank you.